Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your hosts, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we are excited to talk to Ari Sussman about one of his many brands that he works on, and that is Three Chord. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Ari, it's good to see you and have you back, this time with a different brand. You have your tentacles, I feel like, in everything. So thanks for making some time to talk about Three Chord here.
Well, thank you guys for having me, for having us. Excited to talk about Three Chord.
Well, and we had a connection, right? I'm in Buffalo, where Three Chord is located, which I had no clue.
Corporate offices, I should. Three Chord corporate offices. So like the CEO and the CFO, the C-suite, they live in Buffalo. Our blending studio is in Michigan, and then of course we have really efficient and then partner distilleries across the country.
Yeah, you all have a variety of different whiskeys that have been in market. I think one of the big surprises of Kentucky Bourbon Festival 2024 was your all's partnership with Hailstorm, and how Lizzie Hale got on stage and sang her heart out for the Kentucky Bourbon Fest people. So you all always have something up your sleeve when it comes to Three Chord.
Well, Three Chord, and I give credit to Ryan Gill, marketing manager, and our founder Neil Giraldo, who is a music producer, and we can get into all of that. But Ryan and Neil and the entire team from the very beginning, we understood that we had this unique opportunity because Neil is so involved in all aspects of the music industry that we could start doing these fun one-off releases. We call it the Backstage series. With artists, with musicians, and we could work with musicians who we respect, legacy musicians as well as contemporary musicians, and we can work with them to blend completely bespoke spirits that they are really putting their thumbprint on.
Yeah,
and Lizzie's amazing, great singer, great palette.
She was awesome. We got to talk to her in like the media tent last year, and she was great. She's just normal gal, just hanging out.
She's like, and I met her just kind of socially, and before I'd really been exposed to her music, I wanted to meet her as a person and not be influenced. So I hung out with her. I'm like, oh, I feel like I completely vibed with her. She's sweet and considerate and thoughtful and curious and inquisitive and persistent, and all the things that you like in a person. And then I got on YouTube and watched her singing at like Wembley in front of I don't know how many tens of thousands of people, and being a complete rock star. And I was like, I would not have guessed from my interaction with this incredibly sweet human being that she is also a world-class rock star. But that's like with the Backstage series, you get to meet people in a completely different environment.
For sure. No, it's definitely great. And so you talked about impressions and a fingerprint, right? Neil has his fingerprint on a lot of things, and we'd be remiss for the first time having Three Chord on the podcast, right, not to talk a little bit about the backstory. So could you give us the Cliff Notes elevator pitch version of Three Chord? Because when it comes to Ari, if you don't remember, it's about the whiskey. And so we will spend a lot of time on the whiskey here momentarily. So give us the Cliff Notes version of who Three Chord is and how it got started.
Yeah, so Three Chord was the brainchild of Neil Giraldo, who's a producer and musician and composer, who's sold, I don't know, 50 million albums, many of them with his wife, Pat Benatar. They've been married and performing together for over 40 years, and writing books together. I think they just published a children's book called Grandma and Grandpa Are Rock Stars or something like that. But Neil's a creative force, and he's always been kind of behind the scenes. He's not always out there in the front in the spotlight. And he wanted to create a whiskey company that was kind of based on what he likes to do in the studio, which is in the studio, he doesn't have to be the star of the show. He comes up with an idea. He finds the right idea for a song. He finds the right musicians. They come in, they do their thing, they play. He kicks them out. He sits there and mixes and masters and gets the track perfect for release. And when he told me that, like, that's how he expresses himself creatively is as a music producer and a composer, I was like, oh, that's a lot like whiskey blending.
Mm.
We come up with an idea for a blend, something that might be good, that we have an intuition about it. We find the components, and then we sit there and we iterate and we blend and we taste and we modulate, we hone, we refine. And and with Neil, it was like we had this incredible conversation that kept on flowing back and forth between talking about music production and whiskey blending, like they were the same thing. And that's really how the company started, was with this, if we can express ourselves musically, maybe we can also express a little bit of ourselves through whiskey.
Mm. So have you been with the company since the beginning?
Yeah, yeah. I've been with the company since Neil Giraldo had this crazy idea. And at the time, I was, when I met him, I was at a company that I had founded, the Ann Arbor Distilling Company, and I was
Mm.
dumping sacks of corn flour into a mash tun, 50 pounds at a time, on a non-OSHA compliant ladder. It's not something that I would do any longer. In walks this guy, he covered in tattoos, looking like a rock star, who turns out he was one. Um, and he's like, "Yeah, I was visiting my family in town. They said there was a distiller. I thought we should chat." And we just completely vibed and got
Mm.
along. And, that was like 8 years ago.
That's crazy. So as you've come through the ranks, right? You've done a lot of different things, and so that's the antithesis of three chord. But what's the Cliff Notes version of how Ari got into whiskey? Because I feel like you are someone who doesn't just walk the walk. You talk the talk. You live, breathe, eat, sleep whiskey. So can you just give a Cliff Notes version, just a little bit about your background?
The short version is I had a job, a normal job in a cubicle, and I was miserable. And and I left that job and I moved to France and got a job working in a vineyard, which was a lot of fun. And my recommendation would be to people, if you're miserable in whatever you're doing, there's another path, and you don't know where it's going to take you. But if you follow what you're good at, and if you follow your intuition, which we're often told not to do, there might be something better on the other side. So I had a shitty job that I didn't like, and I was miserable, and I quit. I moved to France and was very poor, and worked in a vineyard and learned how to make wine, and milked goats when I needed extra money, and and bartended and did things that didn't have a ton of status associated with them. But that's how I built my palate, and that's how I built my understanding of not only what exists in the industry, but what doesn't exist and should. I spent a lot of time in the vineyards and learning about wine, and learning how winemakers and wine enthusiasts and the wine consumer approach wine, how different that is than American whiskey, or even how Scotch lovers, who have this little piece of land that creates a hugely diverse spectrum of characteristics in its whiskeys, from beautiful and light and ethereal to viscous and funky as hell and smoky, and this little plot of land, this massive spectrum of characteristics. And then I'd come when I was bartending and I'd taste the American whiskeys and be like, well, that's a smaller relative spectrum of characteristics than Scotch or
Mm.
rum or gin or almost anything. And I thought to myself, this American whiskey scene is very homogenized and, in a sense, very predictable. And the wine consumers, in many senses, demand more of their winemakers than whiskey enthusiasts demand of their whiskey makers. Maybe there's an opportunity of bringing the perspective of a bartender, the perspective of a whiskey maker, or the perspective of a bartender, the perspective of a winemaker into whiskey making, and kind of explore what whiskey isn't yet, but could be. And if that sounds pretentious, it totally is. But it seemed like there was an opportunity in American whiskey to tell richer, deeper stories and to kind of tie it to things other than horses.
Hey, I mean, I'm all for that. In Kentucky, there's basketball too.
Yeah, this basketball. That's right.
Um, but no, I mean, it's definitely people knew worldwide, right? They knew Jim Beam and they knew Jack Daniels, and that's what they knew. And they, I would say, in the last 8 years, there's been a huge revitalization of the distiller doing different things and pushing the envelopes and boundaries. And we're starting to see those projects hit all over the marketplace. And so, for you, kind of like looking at retrospectively, do you think that we are demanding more, or do you think there's still more to give from these distilleries and from distillers to the consumer?
I think that there's a really interesting interplay where the distillers, the larger distillers in particular, who are making like really great products. It's really good. It's all really good. It's just all really similar. It's just like I said, it's really high quality, really narrow spectrum of characteristics,
Mm.
um, and that's fine. I mean, there's the opportunity though of using better ingredients, of blending whiskeys from different distilleries, of augmenting whiskeys with woods in ways that enhance the spirit. We're seeing a lot of wood finishes, but I think that um, at the end of the day, our approach is that whiskey is a bit of a canvas. And the choice is, what are you going to do with the whiskey? How are you going to put it in a bottle that tells a story? How are you going to create a brand that people have a reason to connect with emotionally? You
Mm.
got to do something for the consumer. And that's where Three Chord, to kind of round out the question that you were asking, we've kind of released now our volume 2, which is in a sense a rebrand, new bottle, new label design. And what we decided was after 7 or so years of kind of fitting in and doing the things that normally just win you the liquid awards and the design awards and make you kind of a very normal American brand, that in a sense we were kind of bored of that. And at the same time, we thought there was an opportunity to share with the audience, with our audience, stuff that we're into as a music company, as a company founded by a musician. And everyone who works at this company is kind of like music obsessed. I'm a record collector. I've been a record collector forever. I move a lot, but I schlep these records, these boxes of records. My wife is like, what the fuck? Yeah, my
Just
wife is like, still with the
extra
records.
stuff.
And I love vinyl. Neil loves vinyl. We live in this world where everything's digital, and vinyl becomes like kind of more meaningful. And we noticed that there was this trend of not only are we going out and spending our weekends, digging through crates of vinyl at the record store, and that's kind of how we unwind. But we're looking at what's going on with vinyl sales. You can walk into a Target, and the first thing that you see is a stack of Taylor Swift vinyl. What? Like analog, like physical music that you have to pay money for? So vinyl's doing this thing for the consumers where it's like it helps them curate their life, right? Like I've selected this piece of physical something, and and we love that, and we feel that, and we also love shows, going to concerts and concert photography. And
Mm.
we thought it would be really great. I'll just hold up flip side because we mentioned it earlier. We thought it'd be cool to release bottles that kind of are collect. First of all, they look like vinyl album covers, and they're kind of riffs on vinyl album covers. Um, and you can put them sideways, like vinyl or VHS tapes, and the back are kind of like liner notes, right? And so we kind of leaned heavily into this idea that if we're going to be this intersection, that we should be the intersection of music
Mm.
in whiskey, that we've been the intersection of music. We've been a platform for musicians to release their own whiskey, and we're influenced by whiskey without playing music to our barrels. Um, but leaning into this vinyl thing and making products that are super collectible, that work together as a set and look like a vinyl collection, seemed like, on one sense, on brand and on trend. Another sense, it's just like who we are. Like
Yeah.
that's what we love. We love vinyl. We love concert photography. Let's put them together. And so each of the products that you have that we release, these 5 bottles, they all look like different types of records. They all feature real concert photography, and we write, who's the photographer, who's the person. Um, and some of them are past, some of them are up and comers. It's
Mm.
kind of like your record collection. Some of the people are legendary, some of the people are, contemporary, and our whiskeys are kind of the same.
Yeah, and you said something really interesting about vinyl. My wife wanted one a couple years ago, and we would just found ourselves last holiday Christmas season sitting around putting on the Michael Bublé Christmas album and just hanging around like nothing else was on. We turned the fireplace on and we just listened to a Christmas album for like an hour. And the kids would be doing their things, and we would maybe wrap a gift or two. And it's like those moments, like slowing down and enjoying the experience. That's what whiskey's about, right? Like, is enjoying the experience with friends, with community, or by yourself, just kind of getting lost in your thoughts. So I think it's a really cool intersection and how you crafted the new bottle and new appearance with kind of what you want the consumer to do, is to sit down, think about this. It doesn't have to be like a long ponder, but
Right.
think about what you're actually enjoying.
There's something to be said. I mean, you mentioned it just now. When you put on a record, everyone's listening to the same thing, which sounds like, well, yeah, you put on a song and everyone's listening. But in truth, everyone's walking around with earphones. Everyone's walking around with their own
Yeah.
algorithm feeding them something that the person next to them is getting something different. And putting on vinyl and means that you're going to have a shared auditory experience, right? You're going to have a shared frame of reference with people. You're going to be in the same kind of pitch and rhythm and tempo and all that. It's like you said, it's like sharing a bottle of whiskey. If you can put on a record and share a whiskey, or even just put on a record by yourself and share a whiskey and just let the whole thing play through, it's at this point like a form of meditation. There's no dopamine. You're not like, detach, have a moment,
Yep.
put on an album that you love, listen to more than one song by one artist. Like, the algorithm just wants to shake it up all the time, which is fine. Like, you can listen to different stuff, but every once in a while, get cozy and take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
It's very intentional. Like, you have to put the record on. You have to, get everything all set up right, put the music on, and then enjoy it. With like your streaming services or whatever, you just click a button, play, and then shuffle, and then you never know what's going to hit. But like, as artists, it's like they have a way they want you to enjoy the music. And it's usually in the order that they put it on the album.
Absolutely. And then you flip it over. And,
Yeah.
and listen, there's a lot of very, very brilliant, very wealthy companies that want us to interact with the screen for as much time as possible. And they will feed us whatever they think they want, that we want, in very short doses, because they've done the tests and they realized this is how we optimize dopamine, right? That's what we're up against. And one of the things you can do to resist this and kind of get back to yourself, you put on an album, you pour a whiskey, give yourself 30 minutes, you'll thank yourself for it.
Yep.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Actually, like, on a plane, I just will download a album and I will listen to the album start to finish. And Parker McCollum, which is a country music guy, his album's like an hour and 40 minutes long. And that's about what my flight was. And just kind of zoned out and did some emails while I was flying. And, it was nice. It was a little challenge because I wanted to pick up my phone and look at it and flip it around, just sit and enjoy. We don't do that enough. Just find the moments of solitude. And with a 6-year-old and 2-year-old at home, I want to find more of those moments.
Yeah. I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Makes me want to get my record player back out.
Come on, Huey Lewis in the News.
Hey, I've got
Hell yeah.
I've got their album right over here.
I know you do. That's Scott's favorite band.
They might be on tour. Are they on tour? Did you look into this? Someone told me they were on tour. I might have made, I don't think I'm making that up.
I don't follow them. I didn't know that they were back on tour, but maybe.
Gotta feed the monkey.
Yeah. One of my favorite times to listen to records is like in the wintertime. Like when there's nothing else to do, it's dark outside, you got the fireplace going or whatever, and spin some tunes.
Man,
we're coming up on that.
We already experienced that in Buffalo. The moment I got off the plane, it was already dark and it was rainy, and could have used a nice record player. Instead, I had the slow, steady hum of a rattling air conditioner that I turned off for the podcast.
When I'm down so I get that. And when I'm down in Nashville, though, a ton of the hotels there put record players and records in the room, and clothing stores. And now there's a lot of bars are turning into listening lounges. We're seeing this entire and it's not just because you can play music on it. It kind of gets back to that message that we were saying. Like, this means take your life back.
Yep.
Half an hour, take your damn life back, because there's many smart, very wealthy corporations vying for your attention, and they will give you the dopamine if that's what you want. And you have to be intentional and sort of disconnect from it, but it's worth it.
100%. And, speaking of companies that have a lot of things and they'll want to get you the dopamine, for a while, it got really expensive to do what you were doing, to go buy barrels and source barrels from a variety of different people. And now that we've entered the doom and gloom season of bourbon, or whatever season of bourbon and whiskey we're in, there's a lot of barrels that are out there on the market for really inexpensive prices. So as you all go and create volume 2 and create more, iterations down the road, what's that like to you all to have a wider palette at an affordable price, to get more consumers in at an affordable price for you all?
Yeah. So, I mean, frankly, the doom and gloom narrative is should be a little bit more nuanced, because we read a lot about it. But if you are investing in listen, I don't want to belittle the pain of anybody in any industry that's seeing some sort of correction, whether it's the spirits industry or wine or beer or computer programmers, right? I think that we have officially entered a new era, which I call the golden age of the lean non-distiller producer. So if you have a brand and you don't have all the overhead of a still, and you have the ability to opportunistically buy really high quality whiskey for relatively low prices, and you can use that whiskey as a canvas and share it with an audience that cares about how you're presenting the whiskey, then there's never been a better time to be a lean non-distiller producer who's not sitting on a ton of inventory that's not tied to inventory that you produced yourself, tied to the capital, that's all tied up in aging barrels. It's a golden age. And it's a golden age for companies like Three Chord, who can use this abundant whiskey. And basically, one of the great things about Volume 2 is all of our whiskey expressions have gotten older, higher proof, and the price has come down, because we're a lean non-distiller producer, and that's what we can do in this day and age that we couldn't have done before.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of doom and gloom. That's value.
Yeah, we talk about it from a consumer standpoint. It's all got to course correct from a cost perspective, because everything else has gotten more expensive. So if you have all this extra whiskey, you have to flood the markets. Well, if you flood the markets, price goes down because demand goes down, right? Because there's just too many choices to choose from. I feel like a lot of times when we see the doom and gloom articles, we forget basic economics in it all, because it's cool to talk about doom and gloom, and that gets people revved up. But I've been able to try more cool new whiskeys in this craft era that we're moving into because of this, because there's so much product available. Everyone's getting a chance to get their hands on the best of the best and create their version of that, which is really cool.
The other kind of nuance that I'd put on it is that there's a lot of craft producers that have been making whiskey that in one sense or another, maybe they're using heirloom grains that are not totally what people would expect. And in some cases, those whiskeys, they're good, they're well made, but they're just kind of outside of the boundaries of what what we currently call whatever normal whiskey. And I found that a lot of these whiskeys that the craft producers are making that feature varietal stated grains and pot distillation, oftentimes they can be blended with the sort of MGP or Bardstown or Tennessee Distilling Company or these other whiskeys that exist in abundance and are really, really well made, but again, maybe not very good, but without distinctive character. Right. Yeah. And by blending, we can start to take some of these really distinctive craft whiskeys and kind of mold them into things that are more accessible. And again, golden age of the lean non-distiller producer. If you can do things like that well, if you can take this bulk whiskey and turn it into a canvas where you're expressing either ideas or something that people can attach to, of course it has to be good, but it has to be more than just good. It has to be meaningful.
Yep. And for those keeping record at home, yes, I am drinking out of a paper cup. And what was once a quality engineered machine has started to leak and open up. So
we have our first failure. It's a paper cup.
So we are now tilting our glass towards us at all times to ensure that there's no spillage.
Are
So
there not two glass water? Are there not two water glasses in the bathroom?
Are you in the
no,
Hilton?
no, who stays at a Hilton? It's terrible.
You're a Marriott guy.
I'm a Marriott snob through and through, just like I'm a Delta snob through and through. Ari probably appreciates the Delta play there.
I like that. They always have good chicken for lunch in that Delta Lounge.
They do have good chicken. They had chicken tikka masala today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had that in a nice salami sandwich. It was great. Anywho, speaking of whiskey, let's talk about whiskey, because if we talk about food, I'm going to tell you about my buffalo wings I had today, and they were great. But let's talk about this Strange, because Scott wanted to talk about this one. It was one of his favorite releases from a couple years ago. So tell us about the Strange.
So I've got to hold it up. So previously, Three Chord had like 4 standard expressions. We now have 5 standard expressions, and the only one that we kept mostly the same is Strange Collaboration. It's the only holdover from sort of the earlier version. It used to be called Strange Collaboration, but everyone kind of just called it Strange Collab. All our distributors called it Strange Collab. All the liquor stores called it Strange Collab. We called it Strange Collab. So in the new version, we changed its name to Strange Collab. And like I said, all of our whiskeys kind of look like albums, right? And if you want to get really geeky, you might even be able to figure out which jazz album we based this template on. I'm not going to tell you right now, but you can do like Google image searches or whatnot. But of all of the photography that we have on these 5, Strange Collab is cool because it actually features our founder doing a rock star guitar maneuver. So that
Cool.
is Neil Giraldo wearing an Alabama t-shirt. And there's another guy right here, and that guy is the late great Rick Derringer, who actually passed away in the past. He passed in the past year, and he was a guitar player that gave Neil his start. This was actually in the can and already printed when we learned that Rick had passed, and it was a surprise to us all. So it's just kind of one of those serendipitous things where we had chosen to honor this guy. And between the time we had printed the label and released it, he passed, and so we've been it's meaningful. But Strange Collab, it began as a fundraiser for the Johnny Strange Foundation. Johnny Strange is a friend of Neil's, and a philanthropist, and he passed away very young in a tragic skydiving accident, trying to raise money for Parkinson's research. He was the youngest person to climb the 7 summits, Johnny Strange was. So he climbed Everest and Kilimanjaro and all of the big mountains, and he did this to raise money. And so Strange Collab started as a fundraiser with the Strange Family Vineyards, Johnny's family vineyard, where they sent us a barrel of Pinot Noir. We aged some bourbon in it. It was phenomenal. The POs kept on coming in. We're like, shit, I guess we have to make more. And
we're gonna need more barrels.
We're gonna need a lot more Pinot Noir barrels. And it went from 1 barrel to 4 barrel to 6 barrels to now. I think we generally keep 40 barrels on rotation or so, which is a good size. It's the only expression that continued from volume 1 to volume 2. And so this one little barrel that was just going to be an LTO fundraiser, here we are almost a decade later, still talking about it.
So what goes into the blend from like a raw distillate perspective? Like what types of what makes up the blend of the Strange Collab?
So it's all Kentucky straight bourbon from 2 different sources. One of them is Bardstown. The other one can't disclose, but you'll taste. There's a lot of Bardstown, and it's all 6 to 8 years old, and it lives in a Pinot Noir cask for 3 to 6 months. Basically, we taste every barrel before we harvest. So if it needs to go longer, we leave it in. If it can be pulled out, we pull it out. We bottle it at 99 proof, and we really do take the whiskey down. We harvest the whiskeys, we blend them, we reduce them to 99 proof, and then we put them in the wine barrels. So we add minimal water. Red bottling, because we're not looking to dilute any of that character. We essentially barrel age the proof in water there, and it's a booze for winos is what we call this one.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have a strong wine influence, but it changes the viscosity. You get a little bit of the berry on the nose. It actually kind of lightens up, I think, the back end of the whiskey, because Pinot Noir is a lighter whiskey, so it kind of opens up uh, uh, the Kentucky bourbon. I think it drinks really clean and easy for a 99 proof. I mean, it's very approachable, and because of the wine characteristics, it's also really good in a Manhattan.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and find. I'm like flipping through my old tasting notes, but I'd love to go back and find my old tasting notes. But my number one like memory of the original release was it was just like berry cobbler, like cinnamon, like tons of berries, like reduced down, like, and then like even like a little bit of like vanilla ice cream on top. Like it was just like layers of flavor. But like I said, it was one of my favorite releases from like the original batch. So having
I
it,
love your analog note taking. That's great.
oh, I'm super
That's
analog.
old school.
I am super analog. It obviously takes a little while to search through because there's no index in this book, but I'll find it eventually.
What I'd say is, if anybody's either get on the website, if someone's watching this, either get on the website or go to your store, and if you can find this or any of the bottles, look for the QR code on the back, because it'll give you a good 120 to 190 seconds of this Joker blathering on about what's in this bottle, why we made it, who took the photograph, who it's a photograph of, and you'll also have the opportunity of winning $1,000 record player from our partners at Victrola. So we wanted to make sure that the bottles, just like when you're listening to an album, you're looking at the cover, you're reading the liner notes on the back. Um, this is a kind of similar experience. You can sit with this. You can pour a glass, put on an album, sit with this bottle, and kind of look at the bottle and learn about what you're drinking. Um, from me and from the makers, without the comfort of your favorite chair.
Yeah.
Just right there.
I think it's a really, really cool experience. And, for me, drinking that Pinot Noir is my second favorite type of wine. Cabernet Franc is my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah. Pinky out, man.
wow.
Love a good, red wine, but like the jaminess to this, the viscosity of it, I think has a really nice mouthfeel. And I think that's, as the more and more I think about whiskey, like that's what I'm looking for. As Scott said, layers of flavor, mouthfeel, and complexity. The finish is craveable, makes you want to come back for another sip. It doesn't have a ton of burn to it. And so those are the things that I liked about it, was the craveability of it, the easiness of the sip. Because if it's hard to drink, like the 146 proof whiskey that's sitting to the right of me, like I can't enjoy multiple pours of that. But I could enjoy multiple pours of the Strange Collab, because it's at an approachable proof. It's something that has craveability. It's not going to warm from my throat all the way down to my colon. It's going to be something that you can have a lot of fun with, where you have to be at the right time and right place for 146 proof whiskey.
I even gotta say, like the label, obviously one of the coolest things about these is the label, but even down to like the vinyl, like the circle, the imprint on the label, like it's like all these little nods to vinyl records. But then you've got the price tag, right? The little paper price tag that shows the proof. So on this one, it's 99 proof. It's like, it's so drinkable.
We came up, we basically pulled our favorite records out of each of our record collections. We're like, what do we like about this? I like the price tag. The Strange Collaboration even has like a sticker, not just a price tag, but also kind of like the sticker that you might find on.
On the plastic wrapping, like
Yeah, it
before
says
you rip it
finished in
all.
Pinot Noir barrels, high fidelity down here.
Yep.
And that's, you get these stickers on your CDs all the time. And so if there was something that we really liked, up here it says stereo. Like if there's some element that we enjoyed from our record collections, even a price tag. We're like, let's play with that as a design element.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the DBoss circle around here, which you can only kind of see in person, but it also looks like it's kind of worn in a circle here. And all of our favorite old records have
Yep.
that, right? So we're like, that should be on the label.
The roughed up edges, it's like nothing
Mhm.
is pristine anymore. Like your vinyl is not meant to be. It's not meant to be crisp and
No,
clean. It's meant
your
to
most
have.
beloved vinyls are the ones where everything's falling apart
Yeah.
because they've been in and out so much. You've scraped the cover so much,
Well, they have
and
that paper sleeve that
yeah.
originally held it, but now it's all torn up, and you just use it just because it's there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love
Yeah.
all of that. I mean, all of that's meaningful, and so we put all of that into the bottle.
Yeah. I now want to go raid all of my dad's old records. The record player got broken in the move when I was 16. So 20 years ago. But he has like all the original Garth Brooks albums
Yeah.
and like
So you can go to Three
Eagles
Chord.
records.
Yeah, you can go to threechordbourbon.com, and we've got it. Go to our online store. You can buy a record player and whiskey together. Like you should finally,
I,
finally,
I
you can
mean,
buy whiskey and record players together.
who doesn't want that? It's a combo. I mean, it's Christmas time. Get your list out, guys. We're right around the corner, or Hanukkah, depending on what
Yeah,
you celebrate.
tell your
Um,
loved ones that you
yeah,
want a record player and whiskey. We'll make it easy for you.
yeah. So it's really interesting, right? So we have the Strange collab, and that really contrasts a little bit with the next whiskey that we have, and that's the Riot, the double bonded rye whiskey, which is a statement in its own that doesn't make a ton of sense when you just kind of say it out into the space. So just briefly, what does double bonded rye mean? Because I know we can scan the QR code, but I want you to tell the listeners because not everyone's going to have this bottle right away.
We had an idea that we wanted to release a bottled in bond rye. That we wanted to rye at 100 proof. We love rye. We think that
Mm,
rye is the most punk rock of all the grains. Um, it is a scrappy grain, just from an agronomic point of view. It's like a scrappy grain. It's a traveler. It's going to survive and thrive even in shitty soil that corn could never survive in. Like rye is a do it yourself punk rock of all the whiskey grains. So we knew that we wanted to feature a punk band on the Riot label, and it ended up being a really cool, sexy female punk rock band. The Riot Girl movement of the '90s was kind of like a female empowerment punk scene. We thought Riot is a cool play on the word rye. Um, and if I see one more green rye label, I'm going to be like, it's like an indication that it's a like they're just doing what other people have done. So that's why
Pink.
Riot is pink.
Yeah.
It's the furthest thing from a green rye label. And yeah, so that's a little bit of the background into
mm-hmm.
what Riot is, why we wanted to focus on punk rock, and then the design. It kind of looks like one of the old uh, homemade concert posters where you would get a pink background and do black ink.
Yep.
And if you look, listen, you guys allowed me to choose this background that's behind me. Is that Jimmy Reed poster? Same idea. The
Mm,
DIY, the do it yourself, make it yourself flyer with like that is the inspiration for this.
cool.
Okay. And so during we knew we wanted to do 100 proof. We knew it was going to be called Riot, and that it was going to be pink. It was not going to be green. And we wanted to be bottled in bond because that's really badass. And we had these two different bottled in bond ryes that we could choose from. They were both 100 proof, made in a single calendar year from a single distillery. Um, Bardstown and MGP is where they're from. We're very transparent. In fact, we write that on the back of the label.
Mm,
It's very rare that you get non-disclosure agreements from distilleries. I know people are always like, I can't divulge where the whiskey came from. I can count on one hand the number of times I've ever seen a non-disclosure agreement. The reason that most people say I can't talk about that is because in general, it's a commodity whiskey that 100 of your competitors are putting out a bottle at a lower price, and you don't want to tell that to anybody. But we're telling you exactly what's in it. We loved both of these whiskeys, aged 6 and 7 years, 5 and 7 years old, somewhere in there. It's all between 5 and 7 years. It used to be younger, but now we're living the golden age of the lean non-distiller.
Yeah.
We can have older whiskey and we can charge less for it. And we can have it at a higher proof. So we moved it. Our previous Amplify rye was at 95 proof. We've taken it up to 100 proof. Our previous Amplify was also 2 different whiskeys, but they weren't bottled in bond and they were a little bit younger. Now they're older and 100 proof. It's just better all around. And so we had these 2 bottled in bonds that we really liked. We couldn't decide which one we liked more. We started playing with mixing them together, and we found a ratio that we thought was better than either one by itself. And so we submitted our certificate of label approval to the TTB with a fanciful name of, we want to call it double bonded, because it's 2 bottled in bond ryes put together. And the TTB, and we were fully expecting the TTB to say, no, that's not a thing. You can't do it. Go come up with a better idea. That's what we were expecting. And they came back and they were like, well, I guess if you write both of the DSP numbers in the back, which you have to do for bottled and bond, they're like, if you write them both, have at it. We're like, it's one of those times when someone says yes and you think they maybe shouldn't have, and you just kind of close your mouth, turn around and walk away. That's what happened. Yeah. It's double bonded because we said, let's see what happens. And they said, okay. We said, okay.
Yeah. You said,
let's roll the dice.
you high-fived and you said, I love it when a plan comes together. And that was it.
Yeah. We had it it was a very low probability that it was going to work out, but we liked the 2 ryes together. And so we called it double bonded, because it was good. And that's kind of what it was. And nobody disagreed. So we ran with it.
No, I like it. And both of these are 95.5, right? Because Bardstown lays down 95.5, and obviously MGP, that's what they're known for, the Indiana style rye.
Yeah, this is the great Larry Ebersol style rye. I mean, we call it Indiana, but it's a guy, right? It's just one guy. It's Larry. It's the godfather of rye. And what he was able to create, and I don't know if you guys know Goldfarb, Aaron Goldfarb, the writer.
Yeah, for sure.
But he just wrote an article about the history of 95.5 rye. It was fantastic. And I need to start taking a bottle of this. But Larry he's the godfather of American rye. He came up with the 95.5. His mash bill has kind of taken over the entire industry. And what I'll say is a lot of people use that mash bill, but they do different yeast strains and fermentation techniques. So even though people are using the same mash bill, and in most cases the same still, using different yeast strains and fermentation conditions, it's going to be a long and cool fermentation versus a hot and fast fermentation. Even within 95.5, that mash bill, and everyone uses the same Vendome column still, whether you like it or not. It's a good column still, but it's one of the things that makes American whiskey, a little bit homogeneous. You could get a lot of different characteristics of the different 95.5s by using different yeast strains and fermentation techniques.
Yeah, I mean, how Ian runs a still at Ross and Squibb versus, how Nick and team are running a still at Bardstown are completely different. And the flexibility that Bardstown has versus probably the inflexibility that, Ross and Squibb has, right? Just, they're using a distillery that is historic in nature, right? Where Bardstown is using a cutting edge distillery that it was meant for contract distillation and different processes. And, you can clean stuff as much as you want, but there's stuff still floating around in the air that's going to change fermentation and yada, yada, yada. And people don't know that about you. You know that science behind all of this as well. So I think it's really cool. And I really like both of them. And whether, if you put it in different barrel types, if you do a lot of different things, like you're going to get a lot of different flavor profiles for this. But what I will say about this rye whiskey in general was it brought, I think, to your point, it brought the characteristics of both of them that I like. It brought the little bit of a lighter, palate feel and touch from the Kentucky Bardstown, but it brought the pop and the flavor of the MGP, right? Because that's what MGP 95.5 has been known for forever, that Larry created, was that big pop of citrus, that big vanilla caramel type note, and balance with like the lighter, fruitier mouthfeel of the Bardstown Bourbon Company stuff is, I think, a really nice balance. And I think you found a really good like mingling of the barrels, and blending is not bad. It's not a bad term. This blended rye whiskey, bottled and double bonded rye whiskey is I think really balanced. And that's what you're looking for when you blend two products together.
I think in general, blended products, as long as it's not blended with vodka. If you start with two really great, which is what, blended bourbon is whiskey,
Correct.
20% whiskey blended with vodka, which is ridiculous. I mean, Johnny Walker, Compass Box, Cavassier, Hennessy, they're all blends. And you can, it's not controversial anywhere to say you can achieve far greater levels of complexity and depth in a blend than a single source distillery. This is not controversial. Single source distilleries, again, kind of getting back to Scotland. In Scotland, you've got this massive spectrum of characteristics, and they're all like different crans in your cran box. The issue with blending American whiskey, and the thing that makes blending American whiskey a little bit more challenging, is how narrow that spectrum of character is, how uniform it is in style, which is why I love when companies like MGP or Bardstown, even if they're keeping the mash bill the same, maybe they experiment with a different variety of grain, because different varietals of grain, like we were saying, will have different characteristics. And I always encourage, if you've got a big still, we're past the age of commodity whiskey. There's too much of it anyway.
Right.
Why don't you go do something? Why don't you, if you go to a fancy restaurant, you anticipate having a beautiful tomato in your salad. If you go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger, you're going to get a very different type of tomato. You're going to get a commodity tomato. I would love to see some of these bigger distillers use this glut, use this downtime to maybe experiment a little bit more with higher quality ingredients, the kind of ingredients that chefs would demand. And I think once the consumer sees that these other varieties of grain impart really beautiful characteristics, yes, maybe they're lower yield, maybe the grains themselves are slightly more expensive, but it's the difference in making wine with Concord grapes versus Cab Franc.
Yeah. The accountants don't like it as much, but the consumers do.
And if you went to a restaurant where the accountant was doing the procurement, you'd go to that restaurant once and not come back.
Exactly.
But that's that's what happens in the American spirits industry, where procurement is being done by accountants rather than whiskey makers in many cases, not in all cases.
Right.
And that does not service the consumer. That does not even necessarily respect the consumer.
Yeah, and I mean, Jake and I talked about this recently on a podcast with a large producer doing some experimental things. Just search back an episode or two. And the comment was smaller producers and craft distillers and craft brands are forcing their hand to do these things because they say, look, it's working. Consumers like this. They like the experimental things, and they like the different barrels. They like the different grains. They like to pay attention to where the grains came from, how long that they were aged in a certain barrel or finish or whatever. Like, consumers are demanding these things. They're tired of the number 2 dent corn. Like, we don't care anymore.
Well, craft distillers work for, and what I'd say is yellow dent corn it's pig food, sure. But when you're playing with corn or rye, you don't have to be like 100%, Oaxacan green. If you put 5 to 10%, it's going to give you a different character that's richer, that's deeper, without massively changing the character of the overall whiskey. It has, I think, more to do with the fact that craft producers feel like they service their community and their consumer, and corporations serve their shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to
the end user.
Yeah, I was just talking to a brand last night, and I was like, "Hey, why haven't you created a bourbon?" They're like, "Well, we live in the Barley Triangle. They're in Idaho. So we're going to do an American single malt because we're going to get barley from here by here for us, right? That's quality barley. And so, I think New Riff is also famous for this, and what Jay and Brian Sprance have done there with all the heirloom grains and varieties they've put out. Balboa rye is now popular, I feel like, because of what New Riff has done.
Fantastic.
And it's a great whiskey.
And, all kudos to Jay. Jay is one of my favorite distillers out there, and what he's able to do, what he has been able to do in Kentucky, and bring Kentucky kicking and screaming to quality ingredients. Yeah. I would love to see some of the other corporations and privately held companies in Kentucky kind of follow Jay's lead. But yeah, there's no doubt that that accountants don't make procurement decisions based on flavor.
Yeah.
Right. They make procurement decisions based on efficiencies and yields, and flavor is really down that decision making matrix. But like you said, I think they're realizing here's the other thing. Rye is a grain that needs to vernalize. You plant it in the fall and it needs to freeze, and it comes out of dormancy when there's moisture, right? When the ice melts and there's moisture, and then the shoots come up. So you plant it in the fall. Corn you plant in the spring and you harvest in the fall, right? Corn is not in the ground during the winter, but rye is, because it needs to vernalize. It needs to get cold. Kentucky has a lot of issues getting cold in the winter, cold enough for rye to vernalize. Rye's a northern grain, right? And I don't really care about sourcing things locally. I care about sourcing the best thing from wherever it comes from. And I would love, personally, to see, more Kentucky distilleries source American produced grains rather than buy them overseas. There are European governments that subsidize rye production, like we subsidize corn and soybeans. And it makes the rye artificially inexpensive. And then the American accountants are like, let's get a bunch of European rye. What variety is it? I don't know. It's plump. That's how it's differentiated. It's by size, not by varietal or flavor. And so, I in a sense, because rye does not grow particularly well in Kentucky, it can grow, but not as well as it grows, like in, say, Michigan. Making rye whiskey in Kentucky is a little bit like making tequila in Toronto. It's not the input that grows there. And you can make really good, tequila in Toronto, but you can't grow the agave there, right? Yeah. And making rye in Kentucky is kind of a similar thing.
Yeah. And, I appreciate people like Jacob Call, trying to in Western Kentucky where it's a little more arid, acts a little more like Iowa, right? Where they do get a little bit colder swings. Hey, take a shot at it, because rye was grown here at some point, right? We were all agrarian. We were an agrarian society at some point. It's a great cover crop. And so while it might not be a distillation purpose, hey, you got to try and grow. And same thing with malted barley. Every agrarian state that is interested in this needs to be laying down these types of things, because ultimately, and Ari, you appreciate this probably more than most people, whiskey production is all about agriculture. Everything in whiskey is agriculture.
Value-added agriculture, right?
Yeah.
If you can't turn it into bread, 100%. But it's a very unique form of agriculture, because everything else, whether it's beer or wine, let's use wine as an example. You make wine, you put it in a bottle, it continues to age, right? It continues to age. So your 1997 vintage Bordeaux tastes different in 2000, 2010, 2020, 2030, because it's continuing to evolve. That vintage is continuing to evolve in the bottle, which is one of the really cool things about wine. But what's really cool about spirits is that once it hits glass, it's frozen in time. It's time in a bottle.
Yep.
Nothing else does that. Cheese doesn't do that. Beer doesn't do that. Wine doesn't do that. The only thing that stays perfectly stable in a bottle over time, sauerkraut, nothing. Spirits are the only time where you can actually trap a variety, like a vintage harvest in a bottle, and it doesn't change whether you're tasting it now or 20 years later. And that's one of the things that makes spirits such a special way of, it's so connected to your sense of smell and taste is so connected to memory. But with wine, even if you buy a case of your favorite vintage and drink a little bit every couple,
It's
years or
going to
whatever,
change.
they're all different. But if you
Yeah.
buy a bottle of whiskey that you love, and it's like an album. You can listen to it. It's going to be the same. It's going to eventually deplete, right? You play an album too much, it's going to, there's going to be nothing left. Same with the bottle, obviously. But that's another way in which whiskey and vinyl kind of are correlated.
I had to pull out a couple of vinyls that I had sitting over here to the side.
What you got there?
All right, here we go. Sports. Do you
Sports.
like Huey Lewis in the news?
So good.
And
So
then
good.
Here we go for a little red and black action.
Phil Collins, yeah. Pass, no jacket required.
Yep.
Dude looks like an accountant. It's always amazing to see him in concert. Come out with a button-down shirt, and he looks like an accountant.
And then we got some modern day stuff. You probably never heard of this band, but Leagues, one of my favorite bands. They don't make records anymore. We got Matt Carney.
There we go.
And then this is my wife's. Bought this for the wife several years back.
Oh, 2020 experience. It's a good album.
Yeah.
JT.
It's a very long album.
That's just an abbreviated version of what I had over here on the side of the podcast studio. But
yeah, that's great. It's like books and records make the best decor.
Yeah,
Better than the other stuff.
I got two old school Bose speakers sitting right over there. I got my parents' old Panasonic record player in this closet right behind me, and I think I'm gonna have to fire that up soon.
I think if you spend 20 minutes or whatever firing it up, maybe you got to head over to Best Buy and get some cable or something.
No, I've got it all. I literally just have to get it out of the closet and yeah. So my parents gave me all of their old their stereo, but the cabinet was in disrepair, so I had to break it all down. So it doesn't have a good home, but I can make it work.
I got to say, the sound that you get from vinyl is so much warmer than the Bluetooth you get from Spotify. And Jake, your kids will hear the difference. They might not be able to they will hear that it's a richer, deeper music, and it will make them love music all the more.
Oh, there's nothing better than your little kids singing their favorite song, whatever it is. Whether it's, Where's Thumpkin? That's where my daughter is right now. Or my son, singing the latest Forrest Frank song. Or he also likes Chantilly Lace was a song that he sang quite a bit. It's a 1950s song that my dad would always sing, and he just picked it up one day when he was hanging out with his grandpa.
It's the Big Bopper. We love
It's the Big Bopper. It's the Big Bopper, baby.
Scott, you know the Big Bopper?
No,
dude. No. The Big Bopper passed away the day the music died. So he died with Buddy Holly.
Okay.
Right? And what's his face? La Bamba.
Yeah.
It's late, and I can't think of his name.
I know.
Richie Valens. His name was Richie Valens. He was 16. And Buddy Holly was 22. And the Big Bopper, who had been a radio DJ, was I don't know, maybe in his 40s. But he doesn't look like a rock star. And if you get on YouTube, he does this whole fake talking on the phone thing. Yeah. He's an old school performer. But yeah, kids love that. That's a great song.
Yeah. Everybody has homework after this episode. That's for sure.
Yeah. Go watch the Big Bopper.
Yeah, go watch the Big Bopper. Find some vinyl.
Set up your record player. Take it out of your closet.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'm just this just kind of makes me think of all the memories, because I find that we move so fast. I was talking about this with my mom. We move so fast. We just forget to slow down, to taking the moments with our kids to set up the vinyl record. Because, Scott, that's your families, right? And you all just went through some stuff with as a family, everything obviously positive came out of that. But it's those are memories that you can set up for lasting times that you're you know what? Hey, my parents gave me that. Or remember that time you were singing Chantilly Lace at the top of your lungs to your grandpa as we pulled down the driveway? It's those are the things that we just have to take all in remembrance, because like as we sip this whiskey, it's a time of value right now as I sit in Buffalo, you're in Michigan, Scott's in Louisville, we're not going to get this time back. And so it's just enjoy the moments we got. Yeah.
That's the truth, man.
Well, Ari, thank you for not only the intro and the walkthrough of the new Three Chord, but also the introspective talk of the evening, because it just makes me just appreciate, friends and whiskey that much more. I feel like, rising tides raise all ships, and people like you, help rise all the ships. So really appreciate you hanging out with Scott and I this evening and sharing some knowledge and some truth with our listeners. So appreciate you jumping on with us.
It's always great talking with you guys. It's great sipping whiskey, and wherever the conversation goes, it's
what we do.
It's a trip. Yeah. So appreciate what you guys do. Appreciate you allowing us to share these whiskeys with your audience. Thank you for that. And I can't wait to see some posts about what music you're going to be playing on your record players.
I'm going to be posting some record player pictures with these bottles. That's for sure. The week of the podcast.
Fantastic. You guys, thanks so much.
Good stuff.
I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Ari.
Nice.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed, because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.